It's Tuesday, March 8th, and this is now on H&N.
Today, I'm announcing the United States is targeting the main artery of Russia's economy.
President Biden bans Russian oil and warns of a Putin price hike at the pump.
We have to remain vigilant.
Environmentalists and military families say the Red Hill shutdown is long overdue, but questions remain. That's why we're talking one-on-one with Pentagon spokesman John Kirby.
Does the Pentagon believe that there is definitely an imminent threat of the fuel sitting 100 feet above Oahu's aquifer?
I think it's evident.
I know your face.
Stopping commuters in their tracks. I'm Riley Carlson with a unique platform for performers this International Women's Day.
It's been exhilarating.
Have you noticed this on the shelf? More and more of your favorite products are shrinking. We'll tell you why, coming up on This Is Now. Good afternoon. Thanks for watching This Is Now. You got Jonathan and Ashley right here in the H&N Digital Center. You know, we got more developments to pass along regarding the shutdown of Red Hill.
New at noon, our Mahilani Richardson spoke one-on-one with Pentagon spokesman John Kirby about the decision to permanently shut down the fuel tanks.
What was the final piece of the puzzle that led to the Pentagon's ultimate decision? I still haven't heard a complete answer, and it does feel like it was just so sudden after years and years of contentious battle on both sides.
Sure.
And was it finally the community that said, no, we need Red Hill shut down?
There was a lot of factors that went into this. You know, you asked the question, what was the final piece of the puzzle? There were a lot of pieces that led to this decision by the secretary. Certainly, his decision was informed by what we found out happened there in November and the efforts that have gone on since then to try to mitigate those effects. Certainly, it was informed by communications that he has had with Hawaiian leaders and certainly in the Hawaiian delegation, certainly what he's heard from families and from so many affected residents, but also, and this is really not an unimportant part of this, is what he got from his cross-functional team about the strategic value of dispersing fueling. So to give you an example, right now, as you and I are sitting here talking, about 60% of our fueling capability in the Pacific is dispersed and distributed because Red Hill, of course, still has more than 100 million gallons in those tanks. When we're done with this, and when Red Hill is closed and shut down and defueled, we'll be able to advance that distributed fuel to about 75%. That's value. That's 15% more fuel that will now be closer to where our forces and our fleet ships are sailing and operating. It'll make us much more resilient against challenges and threats in the Indo-Pacific, North Korea, China, that are much more dynamic and sophisticated threats than we dealt with in 1943. So there was a lot that went into this, and the secretary put a lot of effort into it. That's why he wanted a cross-functional team. It wasn't one piece of the puzzle, it was a lot of pieces, and we're very comfortable and confident in this decision.
Mr. Kirby, does the Pentagon believe that there is definitely an imminent threat of the fuel sitting 100 feet above Oahu's aquifer?
I think it's evident, right, that having that much fuel sitting over an aquifer, especially in a facility as old as Red Hill, clearly is not the best place for it to be, given the outcomes that we've already seen. Not to mention, just strategically, having that much bulk fuel in one location when you have a fleet and a force that is so widely distributed over the region. So again, lots of reasons for this decision.
And 19,000 gallons of fuel could be in that soil or in the rock there. The Board of Water Supply, which is the municipal water supply, has said there could be voluntary or mandatory water restrictions by this summer. How soon do you think that the defueling process could start?
We're going to start it as soon as we get the plant safe to operate. So the assessment team will come back to us at the end of April. and they'll give us the homework assignment. Here's what you got to do to operate this place safely so that you can defuel it. I don't know what those homework assignments are going to look like. We're not sure how long that's going to take to get it back up and operating again. It could be a very short period of time, or it may not. What I can assure you and everybody of is once we start the defueling process and then start to close it down, we think we can get there within 12 months. Again, we'll go as expeditiously as we can, but we're not going to go faster than safe. We absolutely don't want to go faster than safe.
But does Oahu's aquifer have time? Can it wait?
Well, look, I mean, again, the water supply is clearly an important focus area for us. We're going to continue to work with the Department of Health on the water quality and cleaning that up. That's not going to stop. That effort, the mitigation efforts there, that doesn't stop for this assessment team. That's ongoing now, and the Secretary has made very clear to the entire department that they will have his support and whatever energy and resources that they need to keep those mitigation efforts going, that they can do that. That's an ongoing process.
And finally, can you give us any idea into the Inspector General's investigation into the operations at Red Hill, and how will we find out when it's over and what the outcome is?
You know, I don't have an update for you on that. That work is ongoing. The Navy does have an investigation here into what happened in November. They will complete that in due course. I don't know what the schedule is, and obviously we're going to be transparent about the results and the findings and what we've learned from that going forward. There's no question about that. Our focus today, right now, is on making it clear that the Secretary's made this decision to defuel and to shut it down, and then of course the next big work is obviously mitigating the contamination, as we talked about, and then working on getting that fuel better distributed throughout the Indo-Pacific region.
Mr. Kirby, you talk about transparency, but the Navy's initial internal investigation was due in mid-January. We still haven't had any details about it. Why is that?
Yeah, again, I'd have to point you to the Navy on that. I'm not mindful of their exact timing. I know that their investigative work continues. And again, when it's complete, we'll be as transparent about the results as we can.
Mr. Kirby, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Many consider the Pentagon's decision a victory for the state, along with the thousands of residents who've been calling for the permanent shutdown of the facility. Our Sammy Solina has more reaction to the news.
Military officials say that this could take a year or longer to defuel and shut down that facility. Now, protesters were here yesterday at the U.S. Pacific Fleet. They said that they want to see this happen immediately. They don't want to wait. Here's what they had to say.
We're not naive. We have to remain vigilant. The federal government can change and pivot at any moment, so we have to hold them accountable. We have to continue to put the pressure on.
Military families we spoke to affected by the leak say they were happy to hear about this conclusion, but there is still distrust. Some have moved off island or are still living away from their homes. There are also those who say they had to go to the hospital because of the health effects from drinking fuel, and they said they expect long-term complications.
The number of, courageous folks who have stepped out and have spoke up for their families and other military families and for the people of Hawaii. I think it's validation that we have finally been heard.
There are still 3 Oahu pumps near the facility that are shut down to prevent further contamination into the public's water. Board of Water Supply Chief Engineer Ernie Lau said that water restrictions this summer could still happen as the Navy finds a way to safely empty the tanks. And doing so is a very complicated process, according to health, state, military officials. They all say that there can be risk involved with defueling this facility. Sammy Solina for This Is Now.
And today on Sunrise, we got some brand new details on this shutdown process from U.S. Senator Brian Schatz. Here's what he had to say.
As your reporting shows, doing this is going to take resources, and it's going to take a little bit of time. Obviously, I share everyone's impatience in wanting to get all of this done, but let's remember that the last 2 spills were in the pipeline infrastructure itself. And so we don't want to move more than 100 million gallons of fuel through the same pipeline infrastructure that just leaked. And so we've got to actually upgrade the infrastructure in order to drain the tanks and to permanently close it. That won't take an unlimited amount of time, but we obviously have to get this right so that in the process of defueling, we don't actually create a new pollution event.
Is the EPA going to be overseeing this process to make sure that nothing bad happens while this is going on?
Yes, a couple of months ago, I asked the administrator of the EPA, Michael Regan, to come in and take point on the environmental protection piece of this in partnership with the Department of Health and the Board of Water Supply. So they've got sort of a joint command, and they are overseeing the testing program, which I think is one of the aspects of the Red Hill response that people feel reasonably confident about. But I spoke with Michael Regan last week, and they will remain sort of at the helm of overseeing the defueling process. And so I'm confident that all of the environmental regulators, federal, state, and county, will not just be at the table, but actually be in charge of making sure this is done right.
Continuing our coverage now of the tainted water crisis, I have some animations to share now that really put into context what's underground exactly there at the Red Hill facility and why people are so concerned. Construction of those tanks used enough steel to manufacture 12,000 classic cars. Also, enough concrete to build a 5-mile stretch of freeway. And all of those tanks are buried 100 feet below the surface. All 20 of them each measure 250 feet high, 100 feet in width, and have the capacity of holding 12.5 million gallons. That's large enough to hold Aloha Tower. Each of the tanks have a thin steel liner, and you can see that represented here in this graphic by a black line. The steel is about 1/4 of an inch thick, and it is now corroding. It is encased by a concrete shell, which is represented here in gray. The Navy admits it cannot access that concrete, therefore it is impossible to maintain. And check out this sample taken from one of the tanks. It shows the level of corrosion that the steel has undergone. So those animations and stats come from a special report we did in collaboration with Civil Beat. I have a few more facts to share with you. You know, the whole facility, which generally holds about 180 million gallons of fuel, sits just 100 feet above a groundwater aquifer that supplies a huge amount of water to urban Honolulu, 77% to be exact, according to DOH. And did you know the facility was actually built in the 1940s for World War II? The tanks were constructed by workers who blasted into the mountain's volcanic rock and built the tanks into those holes. Now, since 1943, the facility has recorded at least 73 fuel leaks, totaling at least 180,000 gallons, according to the Sierra Club, although the Navy does dispute those claims. We have much more coverage on our H&N digital platforms right now. It's posted already for you to view. You can also get updates later today on KHNL's First at 4.
New today, President Biden announced the U.S. will ban oil imports from Russia, and he says that will likely drive up gas prices even higher. This all comes as the war on Ukraine is having the biggest impact on innocent civilians. Natalie Brand has more.
The U.S. is now the first Western country to ban Russian energy imports in response to the invasion of Ukraine.
Russian oil will no longer be acceptable at U.S. ports, and the American people will deal another powerful blow to Putin's war machine.
The United Kingdom followed by announcing it will phase out use of Russian oil by the end of the year, though it's not yet known whether other European nations will take a similar step. Europe relies on Russia for about 40% of its energy supply compared to the U.S., which depends on the country for less than 10% of its oil imports.
This is a step that we're taking to inflict further pain on Putin, but there will be cost as well here in the United States.
As gas prices continue to soar to record levels, President Biden has vowed to do what he can to soften the economic impact while also warning energy companies not to price gouge. A new poll shows a majority of Americans support the ban, and there's bipartisan support on Capitol Hill.
I think it's important to deprive Russia of that income. It's a very significant step to take to show the support that we have for Ukraine.
But the director of national intelligence told a House panel international sanctions combined with Ukraine's military resistance may not be enough to stop Moscow.
Putin is unlikely to be deterred by such setbacks and instead may escalate.
Hours after a Russian airstrike, a temporary ceasefire allowed some civilians to escape the city of Sumy in northeast Ukraine through a humanitarian corridor. Natalie Brand, CBS News, the White House.
And here's an important note to pass along regarding this story in Hawaii, where refiner Par Pacific already announced it will buy no more Russian oil. Honolulu regular is at $4.62 a gallon, and premium is over $5.
Hawaii Senator Mazie Hirono met with President Biden's Supreme Court nominee Ketanji Brown Jackson today. The meeting took place in Senator Hirono's D.C. office. Hirono says Brown Jackson is more than qualified for the nation's highest court.
A person who wants to reach out and work with the other justices and be as persuasive as she can. When I asked her, this is a pretty divided court. You know, how do you see your strengths playing out? And she said one of her strengths would be her willingness and desire to listen to the perspectives of the other justices, and at the same time to be very clear on what her positions should be ultimately.
And we'll have more on their meeting coming up on later editions of HNN. Now, you know when you open a bag of chips and it's basically a bag of air? Well, unfortunately, you might start seeing a lot more of that, and not just with chips. So more and more products are shrinking in size or quantity. We're talking everything from slimmed down toilet paper, fewer cookies in a bag, to less conditioner. Retail industry experts say record levels of inflation are costing companies more to produce all sorts of items, so they can either raise prices or give you less, and it's actually called shrinkflation. Now, as frustrating as it is for you, the consumer, just know hiking prices is a last resort for companies because they know customers will notice, and they fear that could turn people off to their products.
You know, always the sneakiest way I see that done is when you have like a bottle of something and you look underneath and there's a huge indentation, making the volume shift. Yeah, not cool.
No.
No. All right, gonna take you live outside. I want to note something as we take this view outside, and this is for anyone with kids in public schools. New at noon, the state education department just announced that outdoor masking is no longer required for public school campuses. Students, faculty, and staff, this all applies to you. The new rules take effect on Wednesday. And Ashley's going to have more coronavirus news, including some updates on mask mandate that we're expecting. That's coming up in just a second. But I want to turn it over to Guy Hoggy with an update on your weather first.
Well, rainfall totals will be limited. So by this afternoon, there's still going to be a little bit of moisture around Kauai, it looks like. And then by tomorrow morning, a little bit more, mainly for the east end of the state. But after that, these things are going to dry up. So from tomorrow afternoon on, don't expect a whole lot of rain. So for today, we will be dealing with some passing showers, but they will be moving along quickly because we have breezy winds. Now tomorrow, the winds slow down, the rain backs off, especially in the afternoon. And then drier conditions with lighter winds take over on Thursday, and those drier conditions will continue into the weekend. The weekend is shaping up to be quite nice, although it's going to be a little bit on the windy side. So if you're going camping, you might want to, put the tents down, put the stakes down a little deeper in the sand.
Now to the pandemic, the state is reporting 63 new COVID infections today. The breakdown includes 51 cases on Oahu, the Big Island, Maui, and Kauai are adding single digits. Governor Ige will be holding a 1 p.m. press conference today on the state's mask mandate. Right now, Hawaii is the only state in the U.S. that has not yet announced plans to drop its indoor mask mandate, even though the CDC says the islands are a low-risk area and it's safe to do so. Hawaii News Now will be airing the governor's press conference on all TV stations as well as our digital platforms. Again, that is at 1 p.m. today. Meanwhile, we're getting an inside look at the front lines of the CDC. Here's Kate Snow with more.
It has been a hard 2 years.
Dr. Henry Walk is taking us to the CDC's Emergency Operations Center.
This is the nerve center, really, of the CDC response.
Before the pandemic, it would have been packed. For now, many CDC employees are still working remotely.
This is a measure of the impact of COVID-19.
But in most of the country, things are shifting. Green means low community levels, yellow is medium, orange is high.
We're seeing more green, more of the yellow. And
that's
hopefully,
good news.
Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully we'll see in the next in the next month or two that the majority of the country actually will be green.
Just days after we visited, the map got greener.
Trips like this to Missouri, this is a new thing. This is among my first. It's really been amazing.
We met up with CDC Director Dr. Rochelle Walensky as she visited a clinic in St. Louis.
Here's the big question. Is it over? I don't know. And that's, the honest truth. We certainly hope so. We certainly have a lot of immunity in the population, more and more people getting vaccinated, more and more people getting boosted. We have some immunity from prior infection, but with certainty, we don't know. Are we nearing a new phase?
I think we are in a new phase where we can start to getting back to doing many of the things that we have liked to do and where we have to remain vigilant.
Dr. Walensky says it's time for most of us to put the masks away.
I would say put your masks in a drawer, anticipate you may need them again, and hope that we don't.
People are going to welcome that advice.
Don't shred them.
Just as many kids are returning to classrooms without masks, some data suggests the vaccine for children is less effective now. Though the CDC recommends kids 5 to 11 get vaccinated, Florida's Surgeon General said today the state will officially recommend against the vaccine for healthy children.
Should parents of 5 to 11-year-olds be concerned that the vaccine their kids got isn't good enough?
I would say parents 5 to 11 should anticipate that their child may need a booster dose and get their kids vaccinated.
If you were a betting person, Dr. Walensky, would you think that we're likely to have more variants? Or is it just impossible to say?
It is impossible to say. We can decrease our chances by getting more and more people vaccinated.
Just a year ago, the CDC had insufficient data and sequencing capabilities. Now it says it's ramped up genetic sequencing to help detect new variants.
Does the CDC have enough tools now to recognize a new variant popping up in the U.S.?
We feel pretty confident in the level of detection, being able to detect a new variant.
New hope as the nation enters a new chapter. Kate Snow, NBC News, Atlanta.
Here's what the internet's talking about. Exciting news for Lady Gaga fans after having her highly anticipated Chromatic tour rescheduled twice because of COVID. The music superstar announced summer tour dates beginning in Europe in July, then moving to North America in August and early September. Stops in the U.S. include Washington, D.C. and Chicago. Previously purchased tickets will be accepted, and she also added 8 more shows. Tickets for those events go on sale on March 14th.
A really interesting commute in London. Here's Riley Carlson to explain.
It takes a lot to stop a London commuter.
Do I know you from somewhere? I think I know your face.
But sometimes a little music will do the trick.
On the 543 to Ashford.
Opera at a railway station is not normal, is it?
No.
It's exciting that it's possible to just bump into opera.
The Royal Opera turned St. Pancras International Train Station into a unique stage for 7 train and travel-themed performances. April Coello Odeje helped bring them to life.
It's been exciting to have people that actually had no idea what was going on and be like, what's happening? And just stop.
Everyday people submitted their story pics to the opera, and each piece reflects the shared experiences of separation, reunion, or forgetting something on the train. They were deliberately showcased on International Women's Day because each piece was written and composed by women.
It's been exhilarating. I think to be able to take this project of women composers and librettists and to be able to sing it as a woman.
Bringing their music to those who may not otherwise hear it.
Passers-by, people working in the station can just stop, listen to a 5-minute micro opera and then go about the rest of their day.
Inspired to find a little more joy in their daily commute. Riley Carlson, CBS News, London.
That's going to do it for This Is Now. We'll be back at the 1 p.m. press conference with Governor Ige.